I would like to share Susan Athey and Michael Luca's article on economists and economics in tech companies, which has been published 2019 in the Journal of Economic Perspectives. So it's about the career path of modern economists who have a lot of opportunities working for tech companies, and these tech companies are well known not only to hire PhD students but also master students that are familiar with basic software knowledge, like basic knowledge in R and other software packages. The first economist I'm aware of who was hired by Microsoft was the famous textbook author Hal Varian. He wrote a textbook on microeconomics, and he got the position of a chief economist at Microsoft. Also, Susan Athey has worked for Microsoft, so top economists are hired at least temporarily by top tech companies. These tech companies also spend a lot of money for research centers, and economists who work in these research centers have the opportunity on one hand to do something in-house, and on the other hand to publish their research in academic journals. So some of my students follow me on LinkedIn, and I follow them on LinkedIn, and therefore I learned that some got jobs in tech companies. So one of the previous master courses, one of the students got a job at TikTok. And sometimes I meet people who currently work for Amazon at international conferences, so they have still time to publish stuff, academically interesting papers, and also you can find people at Uber or other companies who do both. On the one hand, working for an international company, and on the other hand, doing academic research. As some of you know, I worked 7 years for Randstad, which is number one in the staffing industry. And what I did at that time was quite unusual, to move from the academic world to the business world. So that's what I did between 2007 and 2014. At that time, this was pretty unusual. Meanwhile, in 2021, you have lots of opportunities to do both, to work in the real world and to work in the academic world without losing reputation. Economists with a strong background in evaluation economics got jobs, for example, for mathematical policy research or RAND cooperation in the US. So there is a market for economists working in the evaluation field, doing policy evaluation and doing research. And I've done that between 2002 and 2007 at 30W. So on the one hand, policy evaluation, on the other hand, research. So, but this market has not grown a lot in Europe. It's mainly a market that is reality in the US and offers opportunities. And but the tech companies have gotten more and more interesting as an employer. So many economists at tech companies do a combination of external research and internal work, as I just mentioned, continuing to attend conferences and publish in leading economic journals. So this is, of course, very interesting, and that's what I've done at Randstad between 2007 and 2014. So I attended a lot of international conferences and also published my papers. The important thing is that you have a deal with your employer, that you do independent research. And this is just a commitment by your employer to allow that. It's not for sure that this can be done in any environment, so you have to secure that you can do independent work and not that you do what your employer tells you. So this is a personal thing, and you have to fight for that, of course, and to organize yourself. But that's, I think, in principle possible. So Susan Athey refers to her work as a consulting chief economist at Microsoft here in this article, but also refers to her work for other companies. And the second author refers to his work, for example, at Yelp. And of course, what you can do there is kind of new field in economics, market design, where you can combine theoretical insights and empirical work, and this might be very interesting. I will refer to Matt Teddy's work. He has been a professor at the University of Chicago, well known for his work as business data scientist, and he moved to Amazon as a vice president and doing research there. So I will refer to his work during this course. So why are economists so interesting for tech companies? So mainly it's about the three broad skill sets that are part of the economics curriculum, and I will refer to that several times during this course. So first, it's about the ability to assess and interpret empirical relationships and work with data. So that's what we do in this course. Second, it's about the ability to understand and design markets and incentives. So market design and incentives matter. And that's what we will do in this course. And the third one is the ability to understand industry structure and equilibrium behavior by firms. So partial equilibrium, general equilibrium, dynamic developments rather than just comparative static analysis. So this will be also partially captured in this course. So we should be aware of the skills we have, the typical skills economists have, and work on that. And one thing that is obvious is a clear understanding how to measure causal effects, right? So this is the core of this course, to identify causal relationships with real world data using techniques like Ivy. Also going through A/B testing, which is nothing else than randomized controlled trials. And that's what we should do here in this course. And that's also fun, right? That's also fun. And therefore, why don't we start? Okay, let's be a little bit more patient now and go through this article first. So it's about causal inference techniques with large data sets. That is something that is required here in the labor market. And the recent literature, as I already mentioned in a previous video, the recent literature has developed combining machine learning and causal inference. Issues or methods like causal forest, random forests do play a role. A/B testing does play a role. And so the intersection of machine learning and economics allows economists to understand what works and what doesn't, and why. So an interesting paper was published in an international journal, and it's about discrimination at Airbnb, the well-known platform, published by Edelman, Luca, and Sruski. So Luca is the second author of this paper, and they showed that there is a widespread racial discrimination against African Americans on the platform, and think about market designs, how to solve the problem. So market design has become more prominent in recent years and is also associated with Nobel Prizes. Wilson, Milgram, Roth, who got Nobel Prizes for market design work, working as engineers rather than just academic economists, and they worked on things like auctions, right? And residency matching programs, kidney exchange. So I did a lot of videos on that last semester. I will insert some to this course to get to allow for an overview on market design issues. And by the way, the institute I worked for, ZEW, now has a kind of main focus on market design. Meanwhile, under the new president, Achim Wambach. So market design is getting more important. Nevertheless, incentives until today play a huge role. So how to implement incentives to get things done better than in the status quo. Well, now I incentivized you a lot to think about shifts between academia and practice and reconciling these both worlds. Meanwhile, lots of people are doing that, and there are lots of opportunities out there, and you might think about that. But first, there's hard work. There's hard work understanding what economists could contribute here in this field, and it's hard work to get into the software and to understand what a program like R is able to do and what makes sense, and what is the main task. And the main task is always interpretation. And I will have a focus on interpreting things rather than just to learn a program like R in very much detail. So it's about interpretation, and this will be the focus here in this course.